We all drink coffee. Next to oil, it's the second most traded commodity on the planet. But as is the case with most things we consume, few of us have any idea where it comes from. We wanted to change that. We wanted to follow our coffee to its origin.
We're 4 college students who decided to make that happen. And this is our story of following the bean. It began in Chicago. We heard about a coffee company called Growers First that specializes in traceability behind the coffee they produce. They implement programs that give the farmer access to the global market and enable her to improve her standard of living through her own enterprise. By buying a bag of Growers First coffee and scanning the label, one can witness the change his or her purchase has on the farmer and her community. If there was a company worth following, it seemed Growers First was the way to go.
iPads.
We traveled to Honduras, one of the countries where Growers First operates, and there we met our guide, Enoch. We had arranged to spend the week following coffee production and participating in each step.
Leaving the city, we headed to a village named El Socorro de la Peñita, a community of about 60 people nestled in the mountains of western Honduras.
Is that? Él tiene 21, ¿no? 21.
Me too. We're all about the same.
In El Socorro, we met the community, played with the children, and ate the local food.
Here, come on. Yeah, that's 5. Hey, look, he's coming out.
We even prepared, or at least attempted to, a few tortillas.
You take a little bit of this.
A little bit of dough?
Whatever the heck this is.
Is it dough?
Weird stuff. Is
that
enough?
dough?
Yeah. Well, it's a dough. Yeah, it's of some sort, like that. Corn. And you put it in the middle. Probably has some corn in it, yes.
So that's all great. But what about the coffee? There are 4 main steps to coffee production. The first is picking.
Huh? This is quick. It's like 10 of us. On one tree.
Coffee trees stand up to 8 to 10 feet high for accessibility.
And clustered between the waxy green leaves are the cherries.
Nice looking tree.
There are no thorns, and removing the cherry when ripe is surprisingly easy. Almost cathartic.
Yet, it takes around 4,000 cherries to produce a single pound of roasted coffee. And because each tree produces an equivalent of maybe 1 to 2 pounds of roasted coffee each year, the grower has to pick a huge quantity of berries to produce enough for export. And because of the fragility of the stems, which must remain attached to the tree for the fruit to regrow, and the necessity of selection between ripe and unripe cherries, the picking process must be done manually.
Inside each coffee cherry are 2 beans. They are recognizable as the same roasted beans some of us grind for our morning brew. There are multiple layers surrounding the bean: the skin, the pulp, a kind of husk, and a thin film, all of which are rather labor-intensive to remove. There are machines of varying efficiency that help, but many growers turn to community mills to process their coffee in bulk.
Hey, what's up, camera? This leads us to the next step in coffee production: wet milling. By truck, we hauled 1,500 pounds of coffee from the farm to the community's wet mill. There, we pour cherries by the bagful into the hopper of machine that removes both the outer skin and the majority of the pulp from the cherry. The skin and the pulp are used as fertilizer, while the beans continue on toward glory.
Once the skins are removed, the beans are allowed to ferment for a dozen or so hours, loosening the pulp before they are washed. Running water over the beans, a natural sifting process, also allows any impurities or stray wood to rise to the surface and be washed away. The coffee beans, still inside a protective shell, are then smeared across a massive cement slab to dry. After half an hour or so under the hot sun and high altitude, the beans are collected into bags and stored for around 40 days.
Free of most moisture and prepared for transport, the beans are then ready for their next step toward your cup. Dry milling, the third step in coffee production. Dry milling, a process performed in large cooperative processing plants, drew us away from our mountain hangout back to the city. The co-op acts like a funnel through which your coffee is dry milled alongside other coffee produced in the region before it is sent to the coast with a police escort. Because coffee prices have risen so dramatically in the past several months, green beans are worth their weight in cash. So the police are called in to caravan with the shipping trucks. But let's back up a bit.
When coffee arrives at the dry mill, it is labeled and cataloged. The farmer gets paid, and the coffee is taken to a massive tumble dryer, where a furnace the size of a tank removes all moisture. Any leftover water leads to fungus, which leads to bad coffee, and nobody wants that.
The dry coffee beans are ready to be husked. Remember, coffee beans are covered with 4 layers: the skin, the pulp, a husk, and a thin film. The first 2 have been already removed by the stage, but the husk and the film still need to be removed. They are quite stubborn.
However, a machine that we still can't get our heads around removes both, leaving what is known in the industry as a green bean. These green beans, after being sorted by another half-dozen machines, are the final product. They are wrapped in luxurious burlap, stamped with the proper attire, and ready to cross the ocean, one step closer to your cup.
Once the coffee clears export, it has but one more step before becoming the fuel of college students and ER doctors alike. Roasting, the 4th step in coffee production.
You really begin to see where this is.
Growers First coffee is roasted in Laguna Beach, California, where the organization is also located.
First heard about Growers First.
Like making wine, once the coffee fruit has been picked, there are a multitude of other factors that influence the final product. Those factors, time aged, roasting method, length of roast, and so on, can be combined in an endless number of ways. The art of the roaster is to do so in a way that honors the bean.
It seems obvious that roasting a coffee bean means heating it until it's brown, but it's not that simple. In a coffee bean, there are 57 different oils. Roasting, along with adding its own smoky flavor and changing the structure of the bean for brewing, brings out those oils so that the final product has as balanced and full of a flavor as possible.
Length of roast defines its type, ranging from American, a light roast, to Vienna, a medium dark, to French, as dark and charry as they come. In the process, the bean almost doubles in size. It loses any leftover film and takes on the grindable form and intense aroma we know and love.
Took on its sweetness, barley hop sort of smell. This is when it started to take on a little bit of a nutty nuance smell. This would be...
Roasting can be done in a number of ways, from heating over a wood fire to baking with conventional heat. It's like cooking meat over a barbecue. Charcoal leaves a very different flavor than gas. In our case, the beans were loaded into a large drum and rotated over a gas flame. They changed color, which was closely monitored by the roaster. It is the roaster's ability to stop the roast at the exact time intended. There is no going back. Once the beans are brought to the right temperature and roast, they are quickly cooled and let to stand for 24 hours. They are then packaged, either ground or as whole beans, and shipped to the supplier.
Our trip concluded back in Chicago. Before our trip, we had absolutely no idea how much work goes into producing the coffee we drink. Now it's clear that the journey a single bean takes, and more importantly, the amount of human labor involved in the process, should be valued at far more than $1.75 a cup.
As we witnessed, the difference between coffee farms, even those within the same community, are huge. But the cooperative practice of bringing together skills and product make it possible for the little guy to coexist with the big guy. Coffee, we learned, is a communal enterprise.
I'm stuck. So heavy. Come on, Gringo.